All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about Amazon automation, the different types, and what's going to be right for you and what's not going to be right for you, because there's just a ton of stuff that we have to cover on that, because I get a ton of questions about this guy's service and this guy's service. I'm tired of answering questions about everybody's service. So we're just going to have a video on it. All right, so let's go.
What's up, guys? This is 𝗏𝗏𝗥𝗡, and you have reached the 𝗏𝗏𝗥's e-com channel. If you want to learn how to make money online or offline, then you need to be right here. I'm a 7-figure Amazon seller. I'm also an honorably discharged Air Force veteran. Graduated from Penn State and started a career as a software engineer and leveraged that to build my businesses. If you guys have any questions on how to make money, you're going to find all your answers right here, so stay tuned.
You can't be stingy. Like, I can't be stingy with this mansion as much as I want to be. I want to be stingy as fuck and be like, you know what, you privileged little princess. Hell to the no, we ain't getting no mansion. Let's talk about the different types of automation. Now, we're going to go into Amazon automation. We might dive into Walmart automation, but that's kind of not ready for prime time in my opinion, but what the fuck ever. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the different types when it comes to Amazon. So a lot of you are familiar with drop shipping. So there's Amazon automation, the drop shipping way. Then there's going to be wholesale, whether that be FBA or wholesale drop shipping, or a combination of the two. It's not for everybody. Let's just put it that way. So wholesale is not for everybody. Now we're going to break down why it might be more for you than the next person, and then we'll talk about drop shipping, because I feel that everyone knows a good bit about drop shipping, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to break down like the wholesale avenue. So there'll be wholesale FBA, and FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. That's where you take inventory, you send it into Amazon, Amazon picks it, packs it, and then they ship it out for you. The fees are a little bit higher. I can't say a little bit, I'm lying. The fees are much higher than fulfilled by merchant, which would be you sending it out or a supplier sending it out to a customer. Depending on how heavy that item is, it may eat up a lot of your profit. So the bigger it is, the heavier it is, the more space it takes up, the more expensive the fees are going to be, because, you know, it's Amazon. It is what it is. So typically with fulfilled by merchant, it's around 15%. For Amazon fees. With FBA, that will vary greatly, anywhere between 15 to, some cases like 35%, depending on the item, especially if it's really, really, really big. So let's go ahead and break down the different types of wholesale that these people are doing. So if you guys know, like Kevin David, the big fish in the e-com space, we ain't gonna be shit talking Kevin David in this video. I'm not here to give you guys an opinion one way or the other. All right. So he is doing more wholesale FBA. So what that means is that you guys are going to be buying physical inventory and putting it into an Amazon warehouse. It's going to cost you guys a whole lot more money, because with wholesale, when you get a wholesale contract, these guys aren't going to let you just buy like 2 items at a time. You have to make a commitment. So you need to have an LLC, EIN, and all that stuff. And you'll sign a contract with them, and then you'll be able to go ahead and place a large enough product order. Typically, the product orders for the stuff that I would deal with, I have 2 clients that do wholesale FBA. I do it for them because they've been around for a while. But typically those are going to be roughly $10,000 orders at a time. Now, with some services, like Kevin David's, you're spending $20, $30, $40, even $50,000 for that inventory. And while that is a lot of money, there is also upsides to spending that money, but not near as much as people think. So wholesale is a really good way to have great profit margins. Okay, so wholesale typically will have higher margins than dropship items, at least the retail side. So wholesale dropshipping, good margins. Wholesale FBA, maybe even better margins, just due to the fact that you're buying in bulk. Typically, you're going to see anywhere between, I'd say, around 20 to 35%, sometimes higher, especially when it comes to wholesale FBA. But, and I preface this with a serious but, that sounds good up until you realize that most of the items when it comes to wholesale FBA do not move at the clip that like retail dropshipping does. Now, in order for you to make a good bit of money, you have to jump on listings that don't necessarily have near as much competition, because what happens when you have competition, the people are going to drive the price down in order to get the buy box. Now, since you have physical inventory there, you'll stand a better chance of getting the buy box, but not always, especially if there's a seller that has more reviews than you, has a longer seller history. They'll probably get the buy box before you will. And if they have wholesale contracts where they can get the products cheaper than you do, because when you first set up a wholesale contract, you're not going to get the best rate. Over time, you'll get an even better rate. So you might start off at 10%, but over the next year or two, you might end up getting 20% off. So you keep that in mind. So imagine that these guys are the big wigs and they're driving the price down to where you're no longer profitable. Well, those items are going to be sitting there not moving, because you're not jumping on listings that have really, really high sales velocity, because if you did, you'd be competing with even more sellers that are going to drive the price down to where you're no longer profitable due to the Amazon fees and things like that. So now these guys are dropping the price down to where you're no longer profitable. So you're going to have to wait for them to sell out or hope that Amazon gives you the buy box. And if they don't give it to you in a timely manner, or these people re-up, congratulations, now you get hit with storage fees because those items are sitting there. Now, what happens when those items sit there for a indeterminate amount of time? Now you're paying massive fees on items that may be very large. So the larger the item, the heavier it is, the more you're going to pay in fees. So not only did you spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for inventory that is not moving, it's sitting there incurring fees for you after around 3 months. Does that sound like fun? Hell no, it don't sound like fun. The margins sound really fun, right? But that's not always the case. You can also do wholesale drop shipping, setting up contracts with these suppliers and then drop shipping one item at a time. Most people don't do that because they don't have the suppliers necessary, and you're not getting the best deal. You'd be better off doing some form of retail arbitrage drop shipping as opposed to wholesale drop shipping, unless you have contracts like I do with Turn 14. It used to be 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢 until 𝗦𝗧𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢 got bought out, and then there's of course 𝗙𝗡, ETS, different car manufacturers. Well, not car manufacturers, but car part manufacturers, I should say. So that's one of the methods that a lot of people talk about. I don't think that it's for everybody, because a lot of people feel that, a lot of people market it as, you're never going to get suspended, this and that. That's a bunch of bullshit, because I've been suspended for FBA, whether it was private label FBA, wholesale FBA, didn't make a difference. I got suspended regardless. So when people are telling you that you're not going to get suspended, that's a bunch of hooey. Okay, just put that out there. All right. So the marketing guys for the marketing teams for these guys, their job is to sell you a dream and get you to sign up. And that's just a bunch of bullshit. They're going to tell you whatever they can. I'm going to be the first person to tell you your ass will get suspended. If they don't like it, they can come see me in Philly. I'm going to whoop their ass though, because it ain't going to go the way that they think it is. So let's just be real about it. Like, if they don't want me telling y'all the truth, then that's on them. They can suck a whole bag of what. But that's just how it goes. Now, you guys also have private label FBA, and there's a few people that are talking about private label FBA. I do believe 𝗧𝗓𝗡, he's talking about just one dime automation. And while private label FBA does work, it doesn't work to the extent that people think that it does. Private label FBA is very, very difficult to get a home run product, and you consistently have to continuously run PPC. You have to have the right launch strategies and stuff like that. And as far as I know, you're going to be paying per item. You're not going to be paying one fee in order to have a lot of items put into your store. You're just going to have one particular item. So you might end up paying 20, 30 grand just for that one item, not including inventory and ththings of that nature. And that's one item. All right. Over time, that item, may get saturated. The item niche may get saturated, and then what are you going to do? You go from making, maybe $7,000 or $8,000 a month to maybe making $700 or $800 a month, and now you got to pay for another product, and then another product, and another product. And while it works, in the short term, it doesn't always work in the long term, depending on if the niche gets saturated or not. Okay, so you guys have to be mindful with that. Now with private label, the margins are even higher because typically you're getting items that are unbranded, putting your label on them, and then charging a massive markup. In some cases, like with me, for my private label items, like we're at 150%. Okay, that's absolutely insane. But it's for car products and stuff like that. So I'm going to preface that because that's what we do, and we make our own products and things of that nature. So just putting that out there, just making you guys fully aware. So in some cases, yeah, man, your margins are real high. I'd say on average for a private label item, a private label FBA item, you can also do private label drop shipping, which is something that I pioneered. You guys can check the channel, I talk about it. But with private label FBA, your margins can be 50, 60, 70% pretty much on the routine. That's really, really good, but you're not always going to be moving items at a really fast clip. Kind of same with the wholesale FBA thing, where if you're not on a really high sales rank when it comes to wholesale, a real high sales rank listing, the items aren't going to move very quickly. They're going to move slower, and even though the profit margins are higher, you're not going to make as much money as you would if you were moving more volume. When it comes to private label FBA, in order for you to do a lot of volume, you have to make sure that your product is ranked. So you have to do a lot of the ranking yourself through PPC, launch strategies, things of that nature. So, obviously they're going to be doing it for you, but you have to remember that it takes more time. Okay, it takes a much longer time than it would for like wholesale FBA and or even retail drop shipping. Mainly because when you start a new product, your item's at the very bottom, right? You're probably on page 6, 7, maybe even 8, if not further than that. So in order for you to get your item listed, now you're spending way more money than the average person will want to spend. You're probably going to spend, several hundred, if not, a couple thousand on PPC each month in the beginning to get that product up there, and you have to worry about your A cost, which is the acquired cost of sale. The higher the A cost, the more money you're spending to get people to purchase that, as opposed to a naturally low A cost of maybe 30% or lower, where you're spending very little on PPC and people are buying more organically. And that just takes time. As your items get ranked and people buy more often, your sales rank will increase. But you also have to remember that it does take a little bit longer, and with these automation services, they're essentially would be building you a brand, and nobody wants to do that for the long call, right? Like, I'm not going to do that for people. I'm not going to go out of my damn way and be like, okay, I'm going to build a whole brand for you, so that way you can end up selling it later on, or whatever the hell, so it's not something that I recommend, at least as far as like private label automation, just for the sheer fact that, nobody cares about your like private label brand like you do, especially, when it comes to that. And you're going to have to set up multiple items in that particular brand or start multiple brands. So let's say you guys are, I don't know, you're selling like camera lens covers or something like that. All right, and it may be good for a time, but then as more people come in, it drives that, the competition drives your price down because you want to stay competitive and continue getting sales. Well, when that market becomes saturated, and unless you're the top dog, now you're really not making any money, so you have to jump to another item. So maybe you want to sell like a tripod or something like that. Okay, well, same process. Now you're spinning it up and you're doing PPC and you're doing all these other things. And you're spending a lot more money than you're actually making in the beginning, and you might make money for a while. But with private label, like I said, you have to have multiple items. One item isn't going to cut it. Two items probably isn't going to cut it. In order for you to create something sustainable, I'd venture to say you need around 4 or 5, because that's kind of what we've done over the years. All right, and then lastly is what most people talk about, and that's the drop shipping form, the retail drop shipping form. And the margins are much smaller. They're generally 8 to 12%. But you're doing more volume. So let's say you do $100,000 in revenue, you're making anywhere between $8,000 to $12,000 on average. Now that can be higher or lower. It's probably going to be a little bit lower considering COVID and people don't have money like that, and you're going to be driving the price down because people are trying to sell and make money. So I'd say if you do $100,000, you're more than likely going to see around 6 or 7 at this stage, which is still good money for you not having to do anything. All right. But it comes with a lot more problems because now suppliers are part of the process, and you have to make sure that the items get out there. Sometimes they run out of stock and all this, and my clients have dealt with it, and I mean, they complain, and rightfully so, because they're not used to it. They don't understand how Amazon works, so it's my job to make them comfortable with it, and also my job to kind of inform you guys on what to expect. So just know that those margins are going to be much lower than they would be with wholesale or something like that. So just imagine, you do $100,000 with wholesale FBA, not including wholesale dropshipping. Wholesale dropshipping, you sell $100,000, you're probably going to make around 25, 30K. With wholesale FBA after fees, you're probably looking around 18 to 22, 23,000 on $100,000 sales. Maybe a little bit more depending on if you have something that's more slow moving and has a real high margin, but that's typically what you're going to be seeing. So when it comes to private label, now you sell $100,000, if let's say your A cost is low, you don't have to run near as much PPC, you're probably going to see around $30,000, maybe even $35,000 with that. So that's a really big difference. The problem comes in where you have to consistently rank it. So your A cost isn't going to be low at first. So that's probably about a year or two down the line, as long as your product line stays unsaturated or you become top dog in that particular niche. When it comes to retail arbitrage, like, you're never going to see that. All right, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what these screenshots that people are showing or the back end Excel sheets and shit. That's a bunch of bullshit. They finesse that, and what they're doing is essentially adding in credit card reward points and cash back, and then they're adding in rebates as well to give you those artificially inflated percentages, and that's just simply not true. Like, you should never look at cash back and rebates as your money, because what happens over time is that the rebate sites will start blocking you, and you'll have to start using more and more and more. You really think for a second that places like Rakuten or Mr. Rebate or whatever, they're going to consistently give you 4%. So you sell $100,000 from Walmart and they're going to give you 4% on every single thing. That shit ain't gonna happen. All right, so just stop while you're still ahead, and just understand that these guys are, they're not lying to you. They're just being partially, untruthful. And, that's just not the way that this is going to work. All right. So you guys know, like, I don't pull no punches. I don't hold no fluff. Like, shit doesn't always work out, and it's not always going to be perfect, especially when it comes to retail arbitrage, like I was talking about. you know, it is difficult, and you have to consistently, you know, keep your metrics up. And your metrics will tend to suffer more with drop shipping, especially with the retail form, just because suppliers will go on backstock. You know, you can't get those orders out fast enough. Customers complain. Sometimes the listings are not correct. Like sometimes the software gets it wrong. I had a situation where instead of 2 items coming, it was just 1, right? So the software hit the listing and was like, okay, this is what it is. But the listing did not coincide with what was being sold. The listing said 2, but the software, you know, found the supplier that was only selling 1. And, you know, so we placed these orders and they're like, oh wait, we were expecting 2 of these things instead of just 1. And it became a big issue. You know, you had to deal with it. Metrics, you know, got hit, and, you know, it just wasn't fun for anybody. And of course, you know, my client was very, very upset about it. And I'm like, damn, you know, bro, like this, you know, let me fix this. Let me get this, you know, solved. Because it's not all peaches and roses, man. Nobody's going to tell you that shit. Like nobody wants to be honest and tell you like, oh, it's not going to be perfect. Like that's just one example, you know, especially during Q4, during the holiday season, where suppliers can't keep up with demand because a lot of people are selling, they're running out of stock. So imagine that, you know, you got, I don't know, $10,000 in orders that need to go out to customers, but they're backstock and you don't know when they're coming in. What do? You know, how do you handle that? How do you keep your clients' metrics from getting tanked and, you know, potentially getting them suspended over Q4 over the holiday season? You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's a little bit more complex and complicated than it would be for like wholesale automation or, you know, private label automation. But I feel that it's one of the quickest and easiest ways to get in where you can make money over the short and long term. It's typically going to be a little slower up front. You know, it takes a while to spin up, whereas like Wholesale FBA, you can throw items on there, you're going to be making money pretty much within the same month or two with retail arbitrage, unless you have an aged account, which I don't necessarily recommend, and we'll get into that in another video. But, you know, having a new account takes around 3 to 4 months to season, and it's a very slow process. And, you know, you guys pay a lot of money, and I understand. Even my clients are like, oh, bro, I want to start drop shipping. You know, it's taking forever. Why is it taking so long? You know, it ends up being the end of the world. And you know, it's a pain, but it does take a little bit to get to where you want to be with that, because you need a seasoned account in order to get the buy box and have Amazon build some form of trust in you, so that way you can go ahead and start making some money. All right, so those are some of the differences between that, and, you know, and not one thing is going to be right for everybody. You got to be more, if you're more risk averse, then I'd recommend wholesale, maybe even private label if you don't necessarily care about how long it takes to get to that level of making money. But if you're someone who's like, yo, I want to make money, I'm, you know, pretty comfortable, you know, making, you know, anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 every month, you know, just to help pay some bills and stuff like that, then that's going to be your thing, you know. So retail dropshipping is going to be your thing. Now, you guys should also, you know, keep in mind that, you know, these numbers are kind of like best case scenario. So 8 to 12% is on average, but there will be some months where your ass only does 5%. You got to be okay with that, you know. And a lot of people are not okay with 5%, but it's like, were you making that money beforehand? Okay, so, you know, when I'm saying like 20%, you know, for wholesale and this and that, like, yeah, that's, you know, a pretty decent margin, but some months you might only be, you know, 12 or 13, and you have to be okay with that. You know, if you're not okay with swings either way, you probably shouldn't get into automation to begin with, you know. And a lot of people are going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm ready for it, and they're really not. You know, you kind of have to coach them through it, you know, like I do with my clients. And, you know, it is kind of tedious from time to time, because it feels, it's almost like babysitting in a way. You know, but you got to help people understand the process. You have to help them understand, like, not everything's going to be perfect, especially when it comes to drop shipping. You know, with Wholesale FBA, I don't think that these guys do a very good job at, you know, coaching their clients through and helping them with their expectations, because most of the time the contracts take a while to get, and you're not going to have items in there. Now, if these guys already have contracts set up for you, then yeah, you can start getting items right off the bat. But typically, you know, you're going to be waiting months. You know, you could be waiting 4 to 6 months before you see any type of activity on your account. And if you're not okay with that, then you probably shouldn't do Wholesale FBA. It's just kind of stupid. You know, same thing with private label FBA. It might take a little bit because you got to get test orders and all those things. So, you know, just keep that in mind too. You know, you're probably not going to start seeing money right off the bat. So hopefully you guys can take that information, and whether you go with my service or don't go with my service, hopefully this gives you all the information necessary, so that way you guys can go out there and make an informed decision. Because truthfully, like, I don't want to see anybody get dicked over. I don't want to see anybody get screwed, and it's happening way too much. And in 2021, there's probably going to be something that happens more frequently, just because, you know, you get a lot of kids coming into the game saying that they have an automation service, taking people's money and running under the cover of darkness. You guys know there was a gentleman in the space that did that. You know, he was bragging about Porsche Tower and shit like that, and now where is he? He's nowhere. So, you know, it is what it is. So that being said, man, hopefully you guys found this informative. Make sure you smash the like button. you know, click the links below in the description. You know, if you want to find something, you know, there's obviously, you know, links to everything, like my social media. You guys can hit me up there, DM me, whatever. I answer all my DMs, so you guys should know that by now. All right, man. You know, be safe, be smart. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Ain't getting no mansion. You could suck a whole bag of floppy horse wieners, but we're gonna have to suck it up and get this damn mansion because it's all about content. Imagine like you go on vacation and it's not a vacation. You go on vacation and go shoot content. Like it's supposed to be a vacation and it's gonna be content.